Hello and welcome to Hardcast. We'll join Valiant's edgy Doctor Who ripoff and not kill Hitler. I'm Humphrey Erm.
And I am Christian Claus.
Lifeline. Give me Ivar Timewalker, Volume 1. Making History.
It's so good to see finally the last Anipadi brother.
Anipada, isn't it?
Anipadi.
Well, it's sufficiently like old-fashioned and foreign sounding. But yeah, it's kind of nice. I mean, I like the concept of those three. Like three immortal brothers, but in different ways.
Yeah, completely different. And I do love that we kind of, met my favorite little boy out here on this adventure.
It's like when the first year I had that as like a little throwaway thing, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. It's and that's one of the reasons I like what's called this Valiant reboot, so to speak, because the whole setup with having like the what's called different time periods, at least the present and the future, 4001 AD, and then having characters like Armstrong and what's called Gilad,
Mm-hmm.
having then a time traveler as well in part of this universe. You can have so much fun. Like it makes use of the shared universe part of it. Like it's not just oh, he travels to interesting time periods. It's like, oh yeah, but he also meets like another character we've already know. It's kind of hard to do unless you want to have like what's called ancestors or descendants who happen to look exactly like current characters.
Which they do a lot in sci-fi anyway. This is your girlfriend's great granddaughter who looks just like her.
Yep. So, but I'm thinking that you liked it then.
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, it wasn't one of my favorite ones. I was like on the edge of my seat while I was reading this, but it was interesting. I think one of the biggest problems with this book right here is that it's so heavy on the explanation of everything
Mm,
because I mean, I understand it because you do have to explain everything when you're talking about time travel, especially when they're talking about it like, yeah, but it doesn't matter if you do something, nothing's going to have an effect in the world that you understand or that you know. You know what I mean? So I feel like the comic could have been so much quicker to read or so much. I mean, I guess from the pacing side, it could have been so much better if they didn't have to stop all the time to explain the rules. But then again, I don't know how happy I would have been if they would have just said, "Look, time travel works. Don't think about it."
mm.
Because then I would maybe feel like, well, that's kind of a cop out on the other side. I guess then the adventure would have to be like really good because then I could get lost in the adventure without having to worry about the whole time travel thing. So I don't know. I mean, on one hand, yeah, it's good that they're setting up rules. On the other hand, who really cares? We just need to get to the adventure. I mean, because it's all science fiction anyway. No one's going to be sitting there going like, "Well, actually, that doesn't work because of this rule, and that kind of stuff." Like no one's going to be taking this time travel thing apart and go like, "Well, that doesn't make sense," because it doesn't make sense to our three-dimensional beings.
So yeah, no, that's true. But for me, it's all with time travel. You basically have like two choices if you decide to make a time travel story. It's either about time travel or it's about where they go. Like for example, Back to the Future. I mean, sure, it's right in the title there, and obviously time travel is super important. It's just a means to an end to have a boy meet his parents when they were his age.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. It's once he gets to the place, that's the fun part. But then you have something like here or like with Doctor Who, where it's specifically about traveling.
Would you say that Doctor Who's about time travel?
I guess not
I
really.
don't. I don't think so. I think I was about to. I was about to call that an example of about time travel, but then I realized like no, it's about the adventure because it's just like we get into this box and it takes us to the place and nothing has any consequences. You know what I mean? I mean like
A better example would be I'm having trouble thinking of time travel stories right now.
right?
Well, the time traveler itself. I mean, that's all about the futility of changing the past.
Yeah, true. Right, right,
So that's not just about like, oh, what about if a guy from the 1800s comes, to the future or like the far off future?
right.
It's no, what if these things happening and what does it mean? So yeah, there's a lot of little things like that, but this definitely falls into the it's about time travel because it's explained, and obviously since Neela, it's all about she's inventing it, or at least the better version of it. obviously the concept itself is like a plot point, like it's actually important.
Exactly, and also not only that, but it's just they're talking about it so much, and the idea that they're jumping between areas so quickly, it kind of feels like it doesn't matter where they are. The idea is that they just have to escape using time travel from those extra gold people, whatever they're called. What were they called? Something weird.
Yeah, but also interesting too for them to have like these little, I'm not gonna say cop outs, but the usual kind of thing to explain like, okay, how
Oh yeah, Prometheans. That's what I was looking for.
mm,
Which also great name for those kind of people.
yeah, they have good like it's cool concepts involved. I mean, stuff that we kind of like, I guess, have seen in Doctor Who and such, but also, yes, works well within the Valiant universe.
Right.
But I just wanted to mention in terms of things that are just made to what's the word? Just to like simplify things. You have the Zelig, that little like chip thing that will make people,
Mm-hmm.
you'll assimilate.
Yeah.
It's kind of a nice thing because it's always, I mean, you always wonder about that. I mean, it's explained with the TARDIS and Doctor Who. Once you're kind of in there, you have this thing where you'll understand all the languages.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of like, yeah, instead of every time they travel, they have to, learn the language or have a device or, rob clothes or whatever. So, but I don't know. I wish I don't know if there's a better solution unless it's just all about this one time period. But I just kind of feel like, yeah, okay, a simple sci-fi device. I mean, makes sense.
Exactly. And I mean, that's always that thing. Like they even brought up the race in this,
Hmm.
and I feel like if they don't explain that away, there's so many questions to so many things. And
I am a proud woman of color, all right.
yeah, well, you know what I mean. Like you always have to then talk about it. It's like, well, okay, we're gonna go into Japan and like the samurai times when black people were not that there were not that many black people in Japan at that time.
So, but there was that one guy.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying that like there weren't that many, so
Hmm.
obviously you're going to turn heads, and questions will have to be answered. And especially if you're doing it like this, you have a mission. You're not going there just to hang out or whatever. You're going there to do something, and you don't want people to notice you because everyone will be like, like say you want to go and assassinate someone. I don't know, whatever. Then anyone would be like, oh yeah, there was that. Remember that one black girl who's been walking around here for a couple of times? Yeah, it was her. No one would be like, oh, it was this guy with who looked like this and looked like that. There was no like vague description. Be like, no, the one black girl that's in all of Japan. That was the one who killed the emperor. So that's what I mean. I mean, it makes sense. But interestingly enough, Vienna. I mean, obviously there were people of African descent in Vienna at that time, but I thought it was interesting because they were talking so much about the whole race thing. I was wondering, like, well, why didn't they make her a more European color in that one panel where they were changed?
Well, I'd imagine they didn't. They would see her maybe as like some kind of like mistress or what's called assistant or helper or something.
Yeah, but still, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like after just talking about how being black in certain time periods is not very, it brings up a lot of questions, and then to be like, all right, now here's our example, and she's still her normal color. It's just like, well, then why bring it up in the first place?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just there to kind of like, okay, so this is how they're perceived. But I do like when they're then infiltrating Hitler's bunker. I do like how he points out that, yeah, well, it won't help us if we're in places we're actually not supposed to be. I thought that was a nice like wrinkle to it all. Like it won't just automatically put them in uniform.
Yeah, but I don't understand that then. Like, so what? The chip is sentient and knows where you're supposed to be and where you're not supposed to be.
Actually, yeah, you're right. Considering that it makes them perceive them in these clothes, like it's not just like a psychological thing where they just don't care.
Right.
Actually, I'm gonna double check what he actually says then, because that's a fair point. The Zelig is ambient, not active. It won't let us go unnoticed in places where most people of this era couldn't go anyways. Yeah, I mean I like the
But that's
concept.
so arbitrary. That's so arbitrary, Like what does it like have like a Google heat map or something like that where it sees where most people conversed around that time? It's like, I mean, I don't know.
No, I actually agree. I mean, I liked it now. I liked it before, and I still kind of like the concept, but it doesn't actually make sense within here. I just like the idea of it as like an extra wrinkle to it, but why stop it besides, just having some more infiltration?
I mean, again, it's stupid that we're like discussing this part. Like
No, but it's funny because I just no, but I specifically pointed out that just that thing that's done to explain away stuff.
yeah, and now they literally have to do that thing that you were talking about. They have to find clothes to get in there, and that's what I mean. It's just like what decides where you're not allowed to go? I mean, or where most people couldn't go anyway. Like,
Yeah, no, because well, for me the idea was that it's like if let's say they weren't time travelers, or if they were but just normal without the thing.
yeah,
The idea is that sure, we can move about, but the questions will be asked. That's why
yeah,
we have to, blend in. But
right.
when you already have a magical device that will do it automatically, but then it won't do it for this specific scenario, that
Hmm.
is act. I didn't think about it when I was reading, so that's good in that sense. It's not like it didn't like bother me just naturally, especially as my second read through. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That's totally pointless bringing that device in if it's still gonna.
Well, I'm just thinking like, well, I mean, maybe that will help to like, because then technically, would that device then also not work with the language in this area? Like, does it completely turn off or just turn off the visible
Oh
stuff?
well, I don't think as I understood, it's not about. Well, again, it's not like it's turned off.
I mean, I don't get why it has like these two parts. Like, one is this visible thing and one is the audio thing. Yeah, because they show that it then translates the language as well. So when they're walking around this Nazi camp here or this bunker, do they now have to speak German?
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine Fred Van Lente just kind of head desking right now, just going, guys, it's. I didn't think that much about it. It just
Well, I'm just thinking maybe they added this kind of this part of it so that they could explain away something that happens later.
maybe. Actually, now that I'm thinking, I think it might be a plot point or that those chips are involved. I can't
Yeah, because
remember.
then it makes sense. Then it makes sense to be like, okay, we have to put this arbitrary restriction on there so that we can then not paint ourselves into a corner in the next issue.
Actually, now that you're saying it, it might be. Like, I can't remember specifics, but I do think I remember
Yeah.
there was something about those chips again, like something about like if they did this one thing in some scenario, then it did a thing, or
But I guess that's kind of the problem in that sense, if you know what I mean. Like, um, if because we're assuming now that I mean I've just read this as my first Ivar comic, so I'm seeing this and immediately when I read it the first time through, I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense. So now we're spending a significant amount of the podcast already talking about this stupid little chip, and honestly the only reason why it's like that is just because they needed this plot point in a later comic probably, which again it's not the best thing. Like if people read this and go like, oh, that seems very arbitrary, why is this like this? And then to only realize in the next chapter, like, oh, they wrote it just so they could do this. I feel like that's kind of weak, but I don't know. I mean,
well, I think for the way we're reading it, it doesn't work because we have this one volume and then we won't read for another. Actually, I had it up here. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks. So like that's 10 weeks with us just with this information. But if we had
no,
like
it's not about,
no, but if we had read like if we continued to read like each issue as they came out, we might have gotten to the point already.
dude. No, dude.
No,
I mean, would it be an Ivar comic or would it be a different comic where it comes up in?
no, it would be Ivar.
Well, then it doesn't matter because at the moment when you read this comic, this page, you're already thinking like, well, this is really, arbitrary. This is like, there's no reason for
Mm,
this rule.
the damage
It
is
doesn't
done.
matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter if in the next issue it's already explained or the plot point is used. You know what I mean? There's still that moment where you're thinking to yourself because there's no real reason for it. And then yes, it might be used later, but then you're like, okay, so that's the reason it was used, only so that they don't paint themselves into a corner. Like that's the only reason. And I would love, I mean, again, maybe they thought it through more, and I hope they did in that sense. It's just so weird to say, like, I hope they thought this through.
Well, with a time travel story, it immediately has to be, because especially as I've said, when it's back and forth a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, heck, they even meet, I guess a future version of himself.
You know what this could be? It could be a safety net.
Mm.
Because now they can basically say if any fan comes in, like, us probably at some point, we're going to be like, hey, wait a minute, how did they not recognize them, or how did they understand that language, or how did they, that kind of
Mm.
nitpicking that we're doing right now. Then the immediate answer would be like, well, the chip was activated, and then later when they're like, well, why did they have to then knock out those guards so that then they could take their clothes and stuff like that? Wouldn't the chip just do that? And they're like, no, the chip didn't work here because they're not allowed in here. So then right there you have reasons for both sides for some of the, I guess, biggest explanations for nerdy nitpicks.
All right.
But let's move on.
Yeah, I
We've
was just
spent a
about to
quarter of the
suggest.
episode talking about this.
Yeah, I was just about to suggest. Though again, fair point. I do like it when we find things like that in terms of, discussing. I wanted to mention that I definitely feel this is like the successor to Archer and Armstrong.
Okay.
Well, first of all, it's the same writer, Fred Van Lente,
Okay.
and it's the same artist for the first volume of Archer and Armstrong, Clayton Henry.
Okay.
And of course, featuring Ivar. So yeah, no, I just thought it was kind of interesting because, as I said, Archer and Armstrong is over right now as an actual issue.
Yeah.
Besides that one, like volume 7, that's like all these like one shots and stuff.
Mm.
But what's it called? But I guess find it interesting because it really feels like it fills that hole perfectly, so to speak. There's definitely a comedic bent to this, but not as much as like with Quantum and Woody, where it's like farcical.
Yeah.
It's more about like this witty banter while action stuff is happening, and just absurd like concepts like that guy. What was it? Like that internet troll thing.
Oh yeah. God, I almost forgot about him.
Yeah, I mean, kind of cool concept, but I mean, kind of silly. I mean, it always kind of gets a little bit tricky when you have like something like this in like a non-internet thing,
Mm.
because it's always. I mean, it doesn't feel like too stupid, because I guess it's just not enough of him. But I'm still kind of like, oh god, like totes Godwin's lols, fap fap fap.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, what?
Yeah. It just kind of feels like they were trying to ridicule internet culture.
Hmm.
It's like when there's like I don't know who it was, but I think some big artist. Uh, what was it? He was like constantly being ridiculed online, and then he would make like comics or like little pictures of like internet trolls, like like really ugly trolls, and that was his way of getting back. And
Well, that's quite a few.
yeah, I know, but it's just like one of those things where it's just they're not helping anyone by doing that kind of stuff, especially not themselves, or
Hmm.
specifically not themselves. And I feel like this is kind of like it, where it's just like the character it's on itself didn't serve any greater purpose.
Well, he stole the thing, like the compass thing.
Yeah, I know, but like that could have been done by a much more interesting character.
Hmm.
Like someone who was just because this is just like this is the oh god, what's his name? Jar Jar Binks. It's just like this annoying little shit that just runs around screaming, and it's just like he's not endearing, he's not funny. It's just annoying. It's the same thing with this guy. I just skipped a lot of his dialogue just because it was constantly shouting and memes and I don't know. And it's just like the whole thing, like this is when what was it they said? It's like when people merge with social media, and yeah, it just feels like it sadly feels like a failed attempt at like trying to say something bigger. You know what I mean? Like trying to be like, look, ask me what it means. Ask me what it means. It's like kind of like holding up a mirror to society and be like, this is what you can turn into if you don't get off social media.
I don't know. I mean, I think that's the thing that for me makes it okay because he's used very sparingly. I mean, if he was like throughout the whole
Yeah.
thing as either like an unwanted companion or as like the main enemy or something, I'd probably get annoyed. But there's a big break with him, and honestly, I have a chuckle with let's go kill him, LMFAO. Not gonna kill him, noob pig. Gonna draw a penis on his forehead.
Mm.
Again, immature, but that's like the point too.
But I gotta say, just say something positive because I've been very negative this episode so far. Um, I really liked the two main characters.
Oh, Ivar and Neela.
Yeah. I mean, it was just they both. I mean, Ivar. I mean, we've kind of had a taste of him before, and he does have this very. Um, I feel like he's very sympathetic in the sense of, like the whole idea that he did lie to her about her true like future and stuff like that,
Mm.
and the reason why he was protecting her and stuff like that. But it's one of those things where it's we know this character from other media as well as the guy who knows so much that he's trying to protect the people who don't know, and I kind of like that. And especially in him, he's not lying for a bad reason. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And Neela as well. It's nice because she's this, you know, she's taking action as well. It's not like she's just sitting around on the. She's not like on the road. Like she's not traveling along just for fun. And she's not just taking in the sights and just being someone that Ivar can talk to.
Actually wrote that down here. So I think they made a like a really good what's called combination with her. Because
Hmm.
it's one thing when you just suddenly have a character who's super capable all the time, when we know that they should be nothing more than a human, especially like her, like she's pulled out of her element immediately like this. So I don't know. I think it would have been a bit like unbelievable if she suddenly was just like taking charge and whatnot.
Well, no, but I mean, she doesn't. She does it
Yeah,
naturally.
no, but that's what I mean. It's done very well. She's very believable.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
of course, there's the usual thing about I'm from the future, so I don't believe you, which, of course. And, and then her, like, whacking him with, I'm not quite sure what that is, but yeah, whacking him with something right in the beginning there, it's like it works, because, yeah, that's something, just a crazy guy in here. And then, freaking out on the, what's called, battleship, and finally kind of, getting a rundown in the, 4180.
That thing is one of the is an extension cord for cables.
Is that what it is? I didn't recognize it.
You remember on the science table we would have that thing at school, that thing that was like nailed down to the table.
And she pulled it off? Wow. I take it back. She is strong. She's a strong, independent woman.
Black. Oh no, person of color. Sorry,
But
POC.
yeah, that doesn't change the fact she's a woman.
No. But no, because you didn't add the black part
Mm,
or the POC part. You just said strong independent woman.
true. Yeah, you're right. We're intersectional here on Hardcast.
Exactly.
So, anyways,
And I have no idea what that means, but okay.
that's when everything like connects. So you can't just be a feminist. You also have to be like anti-racist and such. If you're like a racist feminist, then you're not a feminist. Anyways, so what's called?
Okay.
No, but again, she works really well because again, got to introduce a new character here, and I know what like comes off her with like the later volumes. Like I think I've read up to like volume 3 of this. So and what's called I really like her a lot.
Does she become a leader of the Prometheans?
I honestly can't remember the specifics. Well, I guess like I can see like the pages, so like the visual kind of stuff. But I actually can't remember the specifics of like what becomes of her.
I just mentioned it because it's in the comic.
Hmm?
That is her, right?
Oh, you mean in terms of that's you're joking with that in terms of we know what
Yeah.
happens in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you'll see. It's interesting. I mean, it's these kinds of things that are fun.
It's not the what she becomes, it's how she becomes it.
No, but like I honestly really like her. What's called the bar with all her like copies.
Hmm. Yeah, that was really fun.
Well, it's just a fun idea. Just everyone like try to attempt, and then they've gone back, and they're all basically at different stages of her feelings about it all.
Hmm.
So it's like you can basically, it's almost kind of like the five stages of grief, but all represented.
Right, right.
I don't know. It's again a fun idea using the thing you've set up, and
Yeah, but I gotta say it was a little bit complicated at the end there. I got really
I didn't catch that.
no, I got it got really weird at the end, like with all these timelines crossing over and her being in multiple places at the same time, and then
Mm.
waiting for her leg to heal and stuff like that. And it's just like, wait, what? Where are you coming from? How is this going? And it just got way too much, and I still wasn't like 100% sure why there were so many people in Hitler's room and why no one killed him. Like I didn't quite understand why no one actually did anything because I mean I understand that she never pulled the trigger on him, but why are all these other people who are there to kill Hitler not killing him? Like why are they just standing around waiting?
Right. I'm not sure. I mean, he obviously says that it's things are like sort of what's called Ivar kind of mentioned that things kind of have to occur in a certain way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of odd.
I mean, especially like with I mean, I understand like at the end where then like time or the universe or whatever was putting everything into Neela's way so that she couldn't like tell people that her dad had that allergy. Um, so I guess that would be kind of the similar thing with everyone else that just like in the comic when they're in Hitler's room or whatever that room is where Hitler comes into, something happens where all these people are now together waiting for Hitler to walk into the room so that they can kill him, but then the explosion happens and then no one can get to him. You know, so I'm thinking that that might be the thing that everyone has their own way of failing, I guess.
Well, the thing is, I guess it all kind of just sort of becomes the same thing. Because I'm assuming this is the event from that movie Valkyrie.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
So I guess, but in here, then they didn't actually have the bomb there, or there was the bomb, but then also this like Prometheus bombed. So either way, it kind of just blends. Like things happened the way they were supposed to, even if there might have been people who shouldn't have been there or whatever.
Or maybe the bomb at the Valkyrie always was.
There never was a bomb.
There never was a bomb. It was just this all the time. But then they only explained it that it was the Valkyrie bomb
Hmm.
or the Valkyrie plans bomb.
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of reminds me of that Futurama DVD movie, Bender's Big Score, I think it was called.
Okay.
Because there they had like all about time travel as well. But there the whole thing is if you if you have like a copy of yourself, because of you traveled back, then what's called that copy, like the one who traveled, I think. Actually, I'm having trouble remembering which one of them would be the one who, but one like the copy would die in some way or other. Like the universe would do anything to kill them.
Okay.
So like that way, that's how you could have paradox-free time travel. Because no matter what you did, like even if it took years, eventually that time traveler will die. So it's something like this here too, where eventually it will solve itself. I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting idea and stuff, but it's just for me, like for me in general, just reading this, it feels very swashbuckly, the adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not so much like obviously they are bringing up all these details and discussing these like concepts, but I think for me, I read it very superficially, where it was a lot more like, oh cool, they're in the Battle of Trafalgar. Oh cool, now they're in Nazi Germany. So like, oh now
Right.
this, oh cool, some cool like character here. That's kind of more my like main impression of it when reading it. Like it's very spectacle based, I feel. Though honestly, as you mentioned, you mentioned like Gilad. I honestly want to see the whole story of him in that bunker.
Yeah.
I don't know, cause
I mean, just that. I love that thing with like when he walks into that room, and then we just see him fighting a evil scientist, like two robots, and it's just like, where is that story?
it does feel like it would show up at some point.
Now
But
they're gonna do the World War One stuff first because now World War One is like super trendy
World War One is back in style.
because we've exhausted World War Two. And we're too scared of making a game about the future because, oh God, what's going to happen in the future?
Well, if nothing else, it's easier these days because countries that we didn't consider would be enemies anymore could work.
Yeah.
So,
It's England, it's the British. Yeah.
anyways, but what I mean is, because I think back with like a lot of the Eternal Warrior stories, like a big thing with him, which I find very fascinating, is just the whole idea of he. It's not that he doesn't believe in morality and such, but he doesn't believe like in any like good or evil side because he has seen all kinds of manners of civilizations kill each other.
Right.
So, and in this case too, this is during the time of World War II. So it's not like some kind of hindsight or anything. Again, I'm not saying that he's fine with what's happening, but I'm just curious, like, okay, what's his like thoughts on all this? Because he has like his own mission.
It's like that episode of that whatever British TV show where they're in the Nazis in the bunkers and they're just kind of like,
Blackadder?
do you realize that we have was it Blackadder? No. It's where they're Nazis. It's and then they have the skull on the
Oh yeah, that Mitchell and Webb looked sketch, yeah.
yeah, that's the one.
We the baddies.
And there's like, are we the baddies? I just want to see like Gilad have that realization at some point, like, I just transported 3 million Jews into a into a concentration camp and they're being killed. Maybe I'm on the wrong side of history on this one.
But that's what I mean though with what's called with Gilad. I don't think he has like a right or wrong like side of history.
I mean, I doubt. I mean, he has his mission. That's what it is. I mean, I doubt he's going to be sitting in Nazi Germany following all the orders that he doesn't believe in. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah,
like,
I mean, I don't think he's like an actual Nazi or anything. Like he's obviously infiltrated them somehow, and he has this mission, which I guess the Geomancer has told him to do. But maybe the Geomancer told him
evil Nazi scientist.
No, but maybe it's like with those, with the Sword of the Wild in the first volume, like letting those Native Americans die. So maybe it's the same thing here. No, you got to let the Jews die, or something even bigger problem will happen.
All the whites will die, and we can't have that happen.
Exactly. I don't know. That's what I mean, though. I mean, it's the thing we saw in the second volume of him as well. As he points out, it's he's been through all these wars, and everyone thinks they're right about things. I don't know. It's just again, he's a perfect character for this scenario.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see here. I double checked, and it's called Ivar kept the timeline smooth by killing that admiral.
Right.
So I just looked him up to check. So, and yes, he was indeed shot by like an enemy sniper. So I don't know, I just thought that was an interesting way, like, but it also kind of confuses me. Like, would he not have been shot otherwise?
Isn't that Napoleon?
Oh, you mean the guy he shoots?
Yes.
No, they say right there, Admiral Nelson.
Oh.
So they're British.
I don't know.
He says a French sniper shot.
I don't know, dude. Fuck you.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know Ivar, but I didn't think he was Napoleon.
I'm just. Well, I mean, isn't that thing that he does with his weird jacket thing? Isn't that
no? Because here's even what's called more extreme. Because as I've understood with Napoleon, it was more about the idea that he apparently had some kind of like ache or something.
Parkinson's.
But in this case, he actually doesn't have a hand. He lost it in a battle.
Which is also weird that he still holds his sword on his left side.
Oh, true.
He should have his sword on the right side because he can't take his sword out from the left with his hand like that.
Well, maybe he's right-handed anyway, so it doesn't really matter. He sucks just as much anyways.
No, but like you can't pull out the sword from that angle.
Sure you can.
I mean, you have to do like a weird movement where you're pulling your arm all the way out. Whereas if you had your right hand, you could pull it sideways out and you can, whatever. It doesn't matter. He gets shot anyway.
Mm.
Did they even have snipers back then? I don't even know.
Well,
I'm a very naval person.
Well, again, probably not the sniper as we would imagine, but I'm sure they would have rifles that would work as such. All right, it's just something I had written down. I just thought it was kind of interesting. So, and also what's called, we didn't really mention specifically, but the Rye cameo.
Well, I mean, I guess you could call it a cameo.
Well, what else would it be? I mean, it doesn't really have an involvement.
Yeah. True. More of like a flash cameo. I don't know.
So yeah, but
So quick. It's just one panel of him just slicing someone's gun.
yeah, but I'm actually wondering about that though. What's called that these like is this an actual instance from the first volume? Because I can't remember. I mean, he did fight a lot of these kinds of guys.
Yeah.
I just thought it would be interesting if it was a very much more iconic scene, so we'd be like, oh, so during that scene they were sitting there. And it would be so cool if they actually had a scene where actually no, yeah, because they're in the what's it called? They're in that bar where the body's dumped. Because isn't that the aquarium in the back?
I have no idea.
Because that would be cool then if they actually have planned this ahead so long ago that Clayton Crane, the artist for Rye, actually painted those two in there. I'm gonna double check now. I need to know. I doubt it.
We'll be right back.
All right, I just double checked. Doesn't seem like they're there, and if they are, they're not painted recognizably enough.
Bamboozle. Bamboozle.
Again, I imagined as such because I think this was written way before. But it's stuff like this though that I would love with a shared universe. When even a little thing like that is then consistent or like referenced.
Yeah, but even then, I mean, it's so hard to see in the future and that kind of stuff. Like, who would have thought, like, hey, let's put a Ray cameo or Rye cameo into this?
Hmm. Well, I mean, for that, I think it's easier in that sense because in this case, it's Ivar who's guest starring. But putting Ivar into like little scenes and stuff would, though honestly, that could be kind of fun if they then come up with reasons.
Yeah. I mean, technically, all they would have to do is just put Ivar in different places around the universe in different times and whatever, and it could all be explained.
Yeah, like a little cameo, like an Easter egg thing. Like not all the time, of course, but if you ever like have like a moment where it could work, or that there's going to be a story later, or if he kind of is already in a scenario where it's going to happen, like he's in the future to something that's going to be published. Yeah, that could be kind of cool. But whatever. There was one other thing though I wanted to start keeping track of though.
Oh, yeah?
I was reminded from last episode when we were what's called reading The Valiant. Because when Neil asks him how he got his scars, or like did you get them from wherever it was?
From when his brother did the experiment thing.
So yeah, no, but it's like, is that how you got those scars? Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, that stuff. No. But I'm just kind of like, okay, I kind of want to double check now, depending on the story, that the artists make sure they had the correct number of scars.
Well, yeah, 3 scars.
Yeah, no, but it depends because he got one scar each for every time the mortal enemy beat him.
Yeah, and didn't he get the last scar in like Viking times?
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I mean. It'd be interesting to check if there ever is something in between those. I don't know. It's just
Oh, you mean like in the future?
yeah, yeah. Well, to see, but also in the past, if there has been any. I don't know. Just one of those little things where you can like, because that's also the interesting thing too. You'd have to think about with the Valiant, which kind of makes it kind of silly talking about it right now.
Mm.
But considering the what's called the Eternal Emperor volume,
Yeah.
he only has 3 scars there, assuming the immortal enemy would
Right.
always leave one. So that would confirm then
Right.
that the immortal enemy will not come back, at least not fighting him or whatever.
Or, I mean, he didn't get one in the Valiant.
True, but he did beat him though in that way.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So maybe in the other ones, he's also going to beat him in a way.
No, I got scars, just not on my face.
He started using my chest because he said my face ran out of space.
He makes what's called he gets 2 more, but then it's like when you like do tally marks. So he gets a 4th one, and then the
Does it
next
the other
one
way
counts the other
around.
way. See, if Valiant was popular, that's a joke that would have been like drawn or something, and people would joke about.
Okay, well, we'll know when Valiant is popular when we go into like Instagram or whatever and we see someone having drawn that.
Exactly. You know what? We should do like some like meme. We should do some like meme warfare with Valiant.
Oh, come on, dude.
No, but like I mean, there are little panels and stuff that could work as little like gags and stuff. And then maybe something that will resonate with people, and someone will ask, what's this, DC or Marvel? And we could be kind of like, dude, it's Valiant. God.
Oh god. Well, you know what? You do whatever you want to do. I'm gonna have no part of it. If it comes back to the podcast and people start listening to the podcast more, I'd totally be for it, but until that day, I want no part of it.
Ow.
I don't want to be part of your hello, fellow kids.
Hey, I'm still a kid. I'm with it. I'm Mimi.
I'm hip.
Ah. Nah, I don't know. I mean, I'm looking through my questions here, and as per usual, we've gone through everything pretty much. So, but I don't really have much left to say, I think. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to nitpick anymore. I mean, we still have a couple of minutes anyway, but I just feel like to anyone who's a writer or anything like that, if you're using a different language in your comic or in your art or whatever, just and it's like something short, just post it on Twitter and ask someone, like if you have followers or whatever, just ask someone on Twitter like how you do that, because it's one of those things where I kind of giggle at these things because I feel like we're at a time in our lives where everything should be correct in this kind of stuff because we're so connected with so many people from different worlds and different cultures and stuff like that, that we can literally put a question on the internet and get an answer, or we can research it. So I just feel like it's so weird when, you know, on a door it says verboten,
Hmm.
which isn't, yeah, again, this is a total nitpick and it has nothing to do with the story, but I just wanted to use this opportunity to talk a little bit about something that I feel is very easy to do and it just kind of helps a little bit, because I saw this and I was just like, come on. I mean, you couldn't take the 30 seconds it takes to Google what's a restricted entry. What does that look like in German? Because I don't think I've ever seen a door that said verboten. It says Eintritt verboten or something like that to
Hmm.
explain like don't come in here or whatever. Or it says, nur für whatever it would be, nur für Mitarbeiter, which I don't think. I mean, maybe here it would be nur für Nazis. I don't know. Or kein Eintritt, that would be what it would be. Because a while ago, a writer tweeted, or a writer that I follow, John August, who wrote Big Fish and other big movies. He tweeted once just asking like, I can't remember what it was. It was a couple of years ago. He asked quite simply, what what does this mean in German? Like, how do you say this phrase in German like correctly? I mean, obviously you can Google it, and Google will give it probably the literal translation.
Hmm.
But all he did was, he just goes like, "Hey guys on Twitter, there must be some German native speakers following me. So how would you say this in German?" And I replied to him, gave him what I would deem the correct translation, and then he wrote back to me saying "Danke," and I was like, "Cool." And I felt validated for that day. But I just feel like, it's so easy for people to just do that, especially like in Hollywood and stuff like that, where they're all talking about representation and stuff like that. And I just cringe. I mean, the cringiest thing I've ever seen was that Scrubs episode where they just completely butchered.
Yeah, yeah, you mentioned that, and I've seen the clips of it.
Yeah, I've always wanted to make a video about that, just complaining about it on my old YouTube channel, but since that's died, I don't feel like I have a place to talk about it. But yeah, talk to people on the internet, guys.
Yeah, we gotta be careful sometimes, Chris. I mean, you can't really have, for example, what's called, yeah, well, I guess not Joss Whedon anymore, but you can have Joss Whedon tweeting and asking, yeah, what's like the appropriate German for, it is I, the Red Skull, and I survived all these years with this Infinity Stone in hand. So now I shall defeat you all, as what's called, specifically you, Captain America, and all of you others, and these new heroes introduced. So that would be a great way to troll, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, but I mean, if you're that high as like Joss Whedon, I would hope that you could have professional people to do that for you.
That's true.
But again, we still see stuff like Scrubs where they just completely butcher everything, and it just sounds horrible.
No, but you're right. It is weird how you can, yes, sometimes.
Especially because there's so many German actors in Hollywood as well.
And it
I
always
mean,
has been.
like, okay, yeah, but I mean, like, okay, I mean, like the Seinfeld episode where they have the Finnish girlfriend who sounds French,
Mm.
because it's like do a Finnish accent. No one can do a Finnish accent because no one knows what a Finnish accent sounds like. By the way, here's one. I am from Finland. That's how you speak. That is how you speak Finnish with a English with a Finnish accent. But I'm just saying that like there's so many opportunities for people to come. I mean, yeah, that whole French Seinfeld Finnish girl, whatever, that was horrible. That was the weird. She was like this goth black chick, whatever. I mean, no, she wasn't goth. She was just like emo before emo was a thing, constantly smoking, and I was just like, cool, Seinfeld, cool.
Well, smoking is appropriate at
But
least.
like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like when the Scrubs episode is like when someone asks you, "Hey, you speak German, right?" It's like, "Yeah, my great great grandfather was German." Cool. Do you speak German? Yeah. All right, you got the job. Shit. And then he has to stand in front of a camera and go like, "Haben du eine Decke für mich?" It's just like, fuck you, man.
Ah, well.
Anyway,
I could
so
recommend
that rant
you.
is
I could
over.
recommend you this one Swedish film, which has this what's called Finnish woman. So, and it's really funny because what's called she's like a singer, and she sings this like really like oh it's like such a seductive song, and that's all she like. She just can't speak. She only sings that song.
Hmm.
And my dad apparently saw that in the cinema, and he laughed because if he just sounded so silly. But there apparently was a Finnish
Yeah.
woman sitting next to him who laughed even harder. So, and she explained that apparently she's singing like a Finnish like fish soup recipe. So just singing very like, take 2 teaspoons of bouillon. But for non-Finnish speakers, it just sounds amusing.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's again, I as a just as sort of summary on my own thoughts.
Hmm.
It's a perfect addition to like the Valiant universe. Yeah, I mean,
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, again, we already knew of Ivar, but as like its own series and what it's doing, like it fits really well and more than welcome. And also,
Wait, so Ivar is also immortal, right?
as I've understood, he isn't. Like the way I understand it, it's that like Armstrong is immortal because he has all those lives in him. Gilad is
Yeah.
immortal because the Earth won't let him die.
Right.
And Ivar isn't immortal, but he travels in time, so he's kind of functionally immortal in terms of he can be everywhere at once. That's how I
Oh, okay.
understood it, and I kind of like that idea about him. That it's not
Yeah,
that
because
he.
I was just looking at him getting those injuries after the hammer hitting his face,
Oh yeah.
and that he actually had the injuries later as well. He wasn't like healing as fast as Gilad or Armstrong. So, but I'm just kind of like thinking like, does he age in that sense? Because he sometimes talks about how he has to wait like months for the next like time hole to pop up or whatever. So I'm just thinking like he must be like really old at this point.
Well, I could imagine that what's called because he has had like that medicine at the end after he gets stabbed by that what's called scorpion or
Right.
whatever it was. So I'm imagining that he's gone to the future where they what's called probably have a lot better medicine and whatever. So he's probably, I mean, I think he's still within like human years, but he probably like even like he can probably be like 60 or like 70, but still look good.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's not like I think he is just as vulnerable as any human would be. I don't know.
Okay, that's cool.
I like the idea of those three brothers though, like all immortal in some form or other,
Hmm.
even if Ivar's kind of cheating it. So, but yeah, no, I don't know. I really liked it. So it's gonna be fun because I remember some of the events later, so it's gonna be fun to read that when it comes up. So anything else or
I don't know. I kind of like this. I mean, it's a lot of fun. Uh, Looking forward to seeing what comes next, of course.
of course.
Of course.
Well, that was the 51st episode of Heartcast, detailing Ivar Timewalker, Volume 1. You can discuss this episode on Reddit, tweet us, or you can follow us on Facebook. Links are in the show notes. Also, All of our episodes are available on our hosting site, Podbean. Catch us next time for our next episode discussing Rai Volume 2, Battle for New Japan.
Hey, go to page 137, one of those concept arts or the character designs.
37?
Yeah, 137.
Yeah. Yeah,
Doesn't he look like the guy from Hotel Dusk?
he does.
Like 1 to 1, like with the bandages, the short hair, the kind of overcoat, the suit, and the open tie.
Yeah, that's
I
actually
mean,
is exactly that.
I could literally put a picture of the Hotel Dusk guy right next to him, and it would probably be a match.
If we had thumbnails, that would be the thumbnail.
All right then. All right.
All right.